Today we have an interesting archetype to come from the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D Synchro era. That is the Assault Mode archetype used by Yusei and Jack respectively during U5D's promo episode, which never got dubbed, of course, and was used to promote a certain booster pack. I think it was Crimson. I don't know. It was the set where Assault Modes came out. Basically, what Assault Mode does is rely on transforming Synchro monsters into the so-called Assault Modes. So yeah, let's start up, and yeah, they're based on this little trap card here, known as Assault Mode Activate. Tribute one Synchro monster. Special summon one Assault Mode monster whose name, shut up, includes the tributed monster's name from your deck and attack position. So yeah, you use this trap card on a certain Synchro monster to transforming it into an Assault Mode monster, and it has to be specifically from the deck, which brings up a few problems we'll cover soon as we get into the archetype support. However, this also, the Assault Mode lineup also includes Synchro monsters which technically already belong to a certain archetype. We'll get to those later. However, it has two monsters which don't belong to any archetype, and those Synchro monsters we'll be reviewing as part of the archetype. So yeah, unless they get like, I don't know, an archetype based around said monsters. So yeah. First up, let's take a look at their monsters. First up, we have Psy Reflector. It's a level 1 Psychic Tuner with 400 attack and 300 defense. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Assault Mode Activate or one card that specifically lists Assault Mode Activate in its text from your deck to your hand, except Psy Reflector. You can reveal one Assault Mode Activate in your hand, then target one monster in your graveyard that specifically lists Assault Mode Activate in its text, except Psy Reflector. Special summon it, and if you do, increase its level by 1 to 4. You can only use each effect of Psy Reflector once per turn. So since this is a tuner monster, it's used to summon Synchro monsters which can be transformed into Assault Modes. It's a pretty good searcher and can revive fallen Assault Mode monsters, since, you know, they list Assault Mode in their card text and names. So yeah, this is actually a genuine 3-off, summonable by 1 for 1 as well. So yeah, also has a level manipulating effect with a pretty high pull, so it's a pretty cool card to consider running. Their next monster is another tuner, Arcane Apprentice, a level 2 spellcaster with 1000 attack and 400 defense. And if this card is sent to the graveyard for a Synchro summon, you can add one Assault Mode Activate from your deck to your hand. Basically, this is also it's a much older card than Psy Reflector, so yeah, its usage is a bit more dampened, but still, I prefer Psy Reflector over this thing many more times, because Psy Reflector has a much more wider search range, but this is also really nice. It's all specifically searches out Assault Mode Activate, which is not that bad, honestly, since the archetype is based around it. So yeah, run one or two of these. Their next monster is the level 3 Nightwing Sorceress. You can activate once Assault Mode Activate the turn it is set. So the archetypal Temple of the Kings for a specific trap card is nothing too unusual for an archetype based around a specific trap card. However, the stats and level of this thing makes it very hard to consider running, and not to mention this kind of effect is very slow. If it let you activate an Assault Mode Activate directly from the graveyard or deck, then I would actually have stuff to talk about here, but since it's none of those things, it's a waste of a cool artwork, in my opinion. Their next monster is the level 4 Assault Beast. Has 1900 attack, and you can discard this card to the graveyard to add one Assault Mode Activate from your deck to your hand. With this thing even existing, well, this is basically an archetype's version of a field searcher, there is absolutely no reason to run Arcane Apprentice at this point, since, well, this thing does the same thing but miles better. So yeah, Assault Beast is an absolute 3-off staple in Assault Mode decks. Their next monster is Assault Mercenary. Once per turn, you can return one Assault Mode Activate from your hand or graveyard to the deck to destroy one spell or trap card your opponent controls. Or you can do none of that and just run MST. How handy. Seriously, getting rid of your primary playmaker card is nothing. The archetype is something that the archetype very despises on doing. So no assault mercenary here. Next monster is Assault Sentinel, another recent piece of support, and you contribute this card to special summon one monster from your hand or deck that specifically lists Assault mode activated in its text except Assault Sentinel. Also special summon monsters from the extra deck for you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except synchro monsters. You can target one face-up monster you control or reveal one synchro monster in your extra deck, and if you do, the targeted monster's type and energy will become the same as the revealed monsters until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Assault Sentinel once per turn. I am kind of finding troubling to figure out what the purpose of the second effect is supposed to be, let alone this entire card itself. I mean, you can use some of these effects to summon Psi Reflector and Arcane Apprentice, for example, but what the hell is up with the second part of the effect? This should be like, you know, activating, summoning an assault mode monster, depending on what kind of synchro monster you control at the moment, without using assault mode activate. So that means we're ignoring summoning conditions, and yeah, this would actually be a pretty decent card at that point, but now it's nothing too special, let alone worth running. So yeah, Sentinel is not very good. Alright, now we're actually getting to the main assault mode lineup. First up we have Doom Kaiser Dragon Assault Mode. The original Doom Kaiser belongs to the Plague Spreader zombie archetype, as in the archetype consisting of Plague Spreader himself and 3 specific synchro monsters which require him as a specific tuner, one of which is Doom Kaiser. And it has 2900 attack and 2000 defense, and of course cannot be only can be special summoned by using assault mode activate on a regular Doom Kaiser. And with this card is special summon, you can special summon any number of zombie type monsters from either player's graveyard to your side of the field. Those monsters' effects are negated and they are destroyed during the end phase of this turn. When this card on the field is destroyed, you can special summon one Doom Kaiser Dragon from your graveyard. Okay, so every assault mode monster has the effect of whether it's destroyed to revive its original counterpart from the graveyard. However, I would not consider running this in an assault mode deck because the assault modes don't really run that many zombies, so well, it can be used as a tech choice if you're playing against a zombie deck and you're using assault mode, so yeah. However, Doom Kaiser Dragon Assault Mode himself is an absolute beast in a zombie-based deck because he can make an insane board of Link monsters in a pinch, and he does it very easily as well. So making him a very hard staple in zombie decks that can afford to run him. But in assault mode decks and pure assault mode decks, he's not worth running at all. Alright, before we take a look at the next monster, we have to take a look at the synchro monster that's known as Archetype Magician. It's a level 7 with 400 attack and 1800 defense, and requires any non-tuner and any or more non-tuner spellcaster type monsters. And if this card is synchro summoned, you can place 2 spell counters on it. This card gains 1000 attack for each spell counter on it. You can remove 1 spell counter from your field to target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy that target. This is a hard staple in any spellcaster based deck, and for a good reason. Not only can he gains an insane amount of attack points for a spell counter that he has on, and he can gain more of them if you splash him into a spell counter oriented deck, but he can also destroy any card on the field with non-once per turn limitation, which is absolutely lovely. Definitely, this is again a definite staple in spellcaster type decks. And as for his assault mode, well, his assault mode allows you to, when this card is special summoned, to place 2 spell counters on it, just like its original form. And when this card also gains 1000 attack for each spell counter on it, and you can remove 2 spell counters from this card to destroy all cards your opponent controls. When this card on the field is destroyed, you can special summon the original Arcanite Magician, which I'll stop elaborating right now. Okay, so for the price of removing all counters at once, as soon as they're generated, you get a Field Nuke, which I absolutely adore. So yeah, Arcanite Magician Assault Mode is one of their best monsters, and should always be ran in any Assault Mode build. So yeah, this guy gets a hard thumbs up from me. Next up, we have another Synchro Monsters, which is one of the first Synchro Monsters ever to be released, that being Colossal Fighter. It's a level 8, a generic warrior with 2800 attack, and this card gains 100 attack for every warrior type monster in your graveyard. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can target one warrior type monster in either graveyard, special summon that target. So basically what this means, this guy can keep reviving himself over and over and over and over again until your opponent just drops dead. So yeah, but the downside is that this thing has to specifically be destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard. So yeah, that is a bit of a harder that is a bit of a specific condition to fulfill, but still, it's a really good, great card to consider running. And during the early Synchro era, this was an absolute boss monster back in the day. Time for his Assault Mode. What it does is, when this card is special summoned, you can send up to 2 warrior monsters from your deck to the graveyard, and all monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack for every warrior monster in your graveyard. Okay, so we basically what we get here is this thing not gaining attack for every warrior monster, instead of the opponent losing all of the opponent's monster losing 100 attack for every warrior, which is arguably better. But yeah, here we have a problem with the Assault Mode. There are not many warrior monsters in the archetype to consider, you know, running. And yeah, the only warrior monster in the archetype so far is Assault Mercenary, and yeah, you know what I said about him. In fact, it's the only archetypal warrior monster, so yeah, it's not very recommended in an Assault Mode deck. However, their next monster is Stardust Dragon Assault Mode. Stardust Dragon belongs to, of course, the Stardust archetype, and yeah, its Assault Mode says you contribute this card to negate the activation of a spell or trap card or affect monster's effect and destroy that card. If you negate an effect this way, you can special summon this card from your graveyard during the end phase. And yeah, to no one's surprise, this card, along with every other Stardust monster, was and still is one of the best cards in the game. The ability to negate any spell or trap card or any monster effect by simply tributing this card, and not to mention recovering it from the graveyard later on during the end phase, is an absolute phenomenal effect to have. And not to mention, it revives the original Stardust Dragon upon destroying. So yeah, this card is an absolute staple in Assault modes, even a 3-off if we really want to emphasize it. Next up, we have Red Dragon Archfiend Assault Mode. This card cannot be normal summoned or set, of course. Belongs to the Red Dragon Archfiend archetype, and yeah, requires the original Red Dragon Archfiend. And if this card attacks, destroy all other monsters after damage calculation. So yeah, basically this is an upgraded Red Dragon Archfiend, where the original only destroyed defense position monsters. So yeah, this one destroys all other monsters, basically turning him into a Malefic Truth Dragon. So yeah, it's an okay card. It basically upgrades the original Red Dragon Archfiend, since, you know, he doesn't work on Link monsters. So yeah, not as hard as a staple as Stardust Dragon, but still, it's a very cool card to consider running. Their semi-final monster is Hyper Psychic Blaster Assault Mode. Hyper Psychic Blaster belongs to the so-called Synchro Up Psychic archetype, which, yeah, I'll get to reviewing them soon, so I'll tell more about that. And this card cannot be normal summoned or set, and of course requires the original Hyper Psychic Blaster. And if this card battles a monster at the end of the damage step, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's defense and gain life points equal to its attack. When this card is destroyed, of course, revive the original Psychic Blaster. Okay, I don't. This is not that great of an effect, but yeah, it's still a better variant of Neos Wiseman, since this thing has Wiseman's. Well, it's basically a reverse Neos Wiseman effect. Neos Wiseman inflicts attack points as damage and heals you for defense points. So yeah. I'm not quite sure what the original Psychic Blaster does, but I can do a quick check, and yeah, I'll see how it improves him in a way. So yeah, the original one inflicts piercing damage, and yeah, also uh, and it also has the same effect as the original Hyper Psychic Blaster. So yeah, I believe this one is a worse because it loses the piercing damage effect. So yeah, not very recommended to consider running. Not to mention this thing is a level 11, which is one of the worst levels in the entire game. So yeah. And their last monster is their newest piece of support, that being Tech Genus Halberd Cannon Assault Mode, which of course belongs to the first archetype I've ever reviewed on the series, that being the Tech Genus archetype. And when you can only use each of the following effects of Tech Genus Halberd Cannon Assault Mode once per turn. When your opponent would summon a monster, a quick effect, you can negate the summon, and if you do, banish that monster and all special summon monsters your opponent controls. When this card on the field is destroyed, you can target one Tech Genus Halberd Cannon in your graveyard. Yeah, this is the floating effect, so I won't read onward. So yeah, basically the first effect is a very, very clear upgrade over the original Halberd Cannon, which simply destroyed a monster by upon it being summoned. But this thing basically destroys a monster that was summoned, and destroys all special summoned monsters the opponent currently has on the field, which is a huge deal nowadays. Not to mention it's a bigger beater than Quasar, so bonus points for that. However, it's a bit too risky to consider running because the original Halberd Cannon is a bit too hard to summon, because he's basically a Quasar type fusion. I mean, Synchro, what am I saying? So yeah, that makes it a very, very hard card to consider running, because the original one is a bit too hard to bring out and can be cheated out with something like Waking the Dragons. So yeah. Alright, time for the Spell and Trap lineup. First up we have Assault Teleport. Return one Assault Mode monster from your hand to the deck to draw 2 cards. Do I need to explain why you need to run 3 of these at all times? It shuffles your Assault Mode back into the deck and it lets you go +2. Run 3. Always. Next up we have Assault Overload, their first quick play. And it allows you to tribute one Assault Mode monster to inflict to both players inflict damage to both players equal to its level times 200. I am not sure why you want to do this and why you would want to run this thing in the first place. So no, don't run this. Next up we have the quick play spell Assault Revival. Remove from play one Assault Mode activate from your graveyard to destroy all monsters you control and all special summon one Assault Mode monster from your graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. Its effects are negated and it cannot be tributed. If this card is removed from the field, remove it from play. I'm not sure why this thing would be removed from play upon it leaving the field. So yeah, basically you simply activate the card and then it gets straight up banished. But yeah, basically you use this to destroy the opponent's board. Nothing else. The Assault Mode has its effect negated, and yeah, he's basically a useless card up until that point. So yeah, if you run this thing, you usually run it at least at one most, since you know Raigeki and Dark Hole are a thing, and Dark Hole is recently became unlimited. And next up we have their newest piece of support in terms of spell and trap lineup, that being Assault Mode 0. Tribute one Synchro monster. Special summon one Assault Mode monster from your hand whose name includes the tributed monster's name. This is treated as a special summon with Assault Mode activate. And during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, set one Assault Mode activate directly from your hand or deck. It can be activated this turn, and you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. To anyone unfamiliar with this archetype, this is a definite 3-off staple because it allows you to make use of the cards that are already in your hand, the assault mode ones, because basically assault mode cards in your hand are basically garnets and need to be disposed of as quickly as possible, either by shuffling them into the deck with assault teleport or summoning them with assault mode 0. So yeah, this is a 3-off staple, not to mention it's a quick play spell as well, so it makes it even better. Sorry about that. And the next card is their first trap card, Assault Slash. Activate only while you control an assault mode monster. Destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Okay, I would have actually loved if Assault Revival was this thing, but as a spell card. But as it is now, it usually is ran at 1 max. Next up, we have Assault Counter. Activate only while you control an Assault mode monster. Negate the activation of a spell or trap card or an effect monster's effect and destroy it. Run 3. That's all I'm gonna say. It's an archetype. It's an archetypal omni negation. So yeah, all's good with this card. Even though you have to control an assault mode monster, but then again, that is the gimmick of the archetype, isn't it? And their last card is the trap card Assault Reboot. Tribute 1 Assault Mode monster. Special summon 1 Assault Mode monster from your deck with a different name and defense position ignoring its summoning conditions. You can banish this card from your graveyard and target any number of cards in your opponent's graveyard with different names that are Assault Mode activate and or specifically list Assault Mode activate in its text except Assault Reboot. Shuffle them into the deck and you can only use its effect of Assault Reboot once per turn. Other than, shuffling through your combo pieces, this is one of the more consistent ways to summon halberd cannons, so since it dodges summoning conditions and all that, so yeah, if you run this thing, take in a couple of halberd cannons as well. And alright, those are assault modes, and time for the grades. Their consistency is not that great since the lower level main deck monster doesn't do a very good job at searching at supporting their supposed playstyle. They should be easily special summonable monsters which allow you to go into synchros very quickly, but instead they more focus on mediocre ways to search out assault mode activate and their combo pieces. So consistency is not the best, but it's not that bad for me to give it a 1 out of 3, so I'll be very generous here and give him a 2 out of 3 instead. Their power, they can certainly hit very, very hard. They have access to some of the most gigantic beaters in the game, so I'll give them a 3 out of 3 there. So yeah, comeback ability is a bit harder here since none of the cards help out much in that matter because they don't have an archetypal monster reborn which dodges summoning conditions, which is the closest thing they have to it is assault revival, but that also negates the monster's effect, something you really don't want to be doing with your assault mode. So yeah, comeback ability is a bit more out there and not worth talking about. So 1 out of 3 there because once you shut them down, you've shut them down for good. Protection exists in the form of Stardust Dragon Assault mode, which is absolutely ridiculous, so it's not much, but it's still enough for me to give them a 2 out of 3. And Halberd Cannon also can prevent monsters from being summoned, which is another great form of protection. However, their versatility is pretty cool. You can splash the assault mode monsters which are based on a certain archetypal monster such as Red Dragon Archfiend or Stardust Dragon into their specific decks, unlike Malefics. They become really cool resources to basically extend the plays of those archetypes and work very well in tandem with them. So yeah, versatility gets a 2 out of 3 as well. So yeah, assault modes are basically one of the more interesting sides of 5Ds. I certainly as hell wasn't expecting them, and when I first saw Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, I thought it was a fan-made card, but no, it's actually a fully fledged out archetype, and I'd like to see it expanded upon in the future, maybe in the form of, giving other synchro monsters in the game of a form of an assault mode. I'd personally love to see a Crystal Wing or Clear Wing in an assault mode, so yeah. Or maybe, I don't know, what else could be a good target for an assault mode? Shooting Quasar Dragon Assault Mode, that would be something, right? Yeah, as one can dream, right? Well, halberd cannon is one of their newest pieces of support, so I guess I could technically count that as the archetype not being dead yet. Anyway, that is it for Assault Mode. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all. Have a good day and peace.